So here we are.
Yeah.
Himanshu Patel. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
For their first ever edition of Pinal Unlocked. This crazy little idea of a podcast we came up with to kind of figure out what this thing is. Pinal County government, I guess. Because like we've talked before, but I think, I've lived in Pinal County pretty much my entire life, 99.9% of it. And it's just always kind of been a mystery. And so we're hoping to kind of clarify how this all works, how the citizenry can get involved, how we can utilize you guys as a resource, because that's what this is all about. And anyways, so little introduction. I know you're the deputy county manager. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm deputy county manager for Pinal County, and pleasure to be on, and thank you for the opportunity. I think it's a great output of what you're doing in terms of getting information out from what the county does. And we have our avenues that we try to get the messaging out, but oftentimes we're not as able to get the message. And I think from a citizen's standpoint and having the ability to engage with citizens, it's great. And that's what we're about. We're government for the people. So
Yep, absolutely.
It's an incredible opportunity to speak about what Pinal County is about. So
awesome. Well, let's start with you. So you have a interesting background. I know you were born in India, correct?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah. Born in India, and spent about 8 years there. And parents had the dream of migrating into America to make a better life, and came to the United States in 1980 and started all my early primary education and high school and college all here in the United States. I grew up in Tennessee, so in a rural community, small town, similar to Florence, Arizona. And
that had to be a little bit of a culture shock, huh?
Yeah, but not as bad, because in India we grew up in a rural farming community.
Okay.
And grandparents and parents were all in agriculture and raising poultry to farming rice and wheat and corn. And so although metropolitan, as most people know, India is extremely highly dense in population.
Yeah.
Metropolitan communities were nearby, but enjoyed my rural upbringing. And same in growing up in Tennessee, enjoyed the southern hospitality lifestyle, and did my education there, at least my undergrad. And then what brought me to Arizona was my grad school at University of Arizona. And so fell in love with Arizona and decided to stay.
Yeah, because when you're talking about India and you're like, oh, we were in a rural agriculture community, that's not what, the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, I know those places exist there, but yeah, the first thing you think of is these massive metroplexes and everything. And
exactly.
Yeah. So it's interesting that.
But the dynamics of the times are different in India versus here. Like when farming over there wasn't with tractors and,
Oh, really?
combines, it was with oxes and hand manual labor. And so I've witnessed all that. I participated in all that. So it's quite different. And so the time frame of growing up in India to coming out here, the evolution of the westernization, it's a lifelong experience.
Oh, I can imagine. So that had to be a thing then, that going from that sort of kind of farming background and then hitting Tennessee and seeing John Deere running everywhere, going, whoa, what in the world is this?
Right. Yeah. Now, India's advanced more.
Well, yeah, of course.
Now they have tractors and others, but I think the challenge there is that the fields are a lot smaller, and so you have smaller equipment. And my background in education was in planning. Community planning.
Okay.
Initially, people don't know what that is. It's like, what is that? You just sit around and draw stuff on paper and figure out where things go.
Right.
Like SimCity,
Yeah.
And it's far more complex. Geography has always been my passion. I enjoy geography, and then that led me to planning. And what led me to Pinal County was I worked for what's a regional planning organization called Central Arizona Council of Governments. And they represent all the cities and towns in Pinal County and the county.
Are they still? Is this still?
It still exists. Regional planning organizations are the entire state of Arizona is broken up into various different regional planning organizations. We're part of what's called CAG, Central Arizona Governments.
Okay.
And they do regional large-scale planning, major roadway planning, major environmental planning stuff. And so they still exist. Their main office is in Apache Junction.
So is it is there input on, say, interstate or interconnecting?
Correct.
Kind of like they're talking about, what's that, the 505 or something that's supposed to connect the 60 and 10 or?
Yep, 505,
Okay.
I-11, that's intended from Nevada all the way to Arizona through Pinal County. So they do regional stuff, and so I worked from graduate school to went straight into basic planning job at the regional level, and I got a chance to engage with all the cities and towns in Pinal County because we have to help our cities and towns as a regional agency for transportation planning, environmental planning.
So they're kind of a resource for the counties and cities and stuff to go to and be like, hey, this is kind of a project that we want to do. Get your input on it. And so they're an advisory type of role. Is that kind of how CAG works, you called it? Yeah.
Right. And they get federal resources. And so we're able to go through them to get federal resources. Much like Maricopa County, which many people I'm sure here have heard. They have their regional agency, but they're consolidated into one county called Maricopa Association of Governments. Okay. And all the cities and county are the governing body appoints one member from each city and town to be the representative for that. So it's a collective group coming together to help make regional decisions. So we have one of our board members serves on the MAG council, and one of our board members serves on the CAG council. Okay. Along with the cities and towns. Like Florence has a representative that serves on the CAG council and the MAC council. So that started me in Pinal County, so I got a chance to travel throughout Pinal County, Gila County, and then an opportunity came for, as you build relationships, I built a strong relationship with Florence, helping them with projects, and so there was an opportunity there to work with the town of Florence directly. And so I started working for the town of Florence in 2001 and made my way up to being the town manager. So I helped administrate the policies of the Florence Town Council for 11 years and left Florence in 2012 and started with Pinal County in 2013.
Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of looking through the org chart of leadership of Pinal County, and your name pops up and you wear several different hats.
Yeah. With the county organization, much larger organization than the cities and towns, and we have a balance between providing services to unincorporated Pinal County and also all population of Pinal County. For example, our judicial system serves everyone in Pinal County.
Correct. Okay.
Our public health system serves everyone in Pinal County. Our air quality department serves everyone in Pinal County. And then there's departments that serve only unincorporated areas. Like our development services. They only manage land development in unincorporated areas. Okay. The cities take on their role to manage the city jurisdictions.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows that unincorporated versus incorporated. Incorporated are the cities and actual towns that are. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. They have their responsibilities like law enforcement, fire, planning and development services.
Within their boundaries, and then everything else falls underneath the county.
Correct. And so, my area, and so with the vast amount of departments that the county has, we have our administrative structure broken up into, we have the county manager and 3 other deputy county managers. And so each deputy county managers are assigned several departments to help administrate policies. Some of the departments are support departments that only provide service to other county departments. Okay. Like IT is a support department.
Right.
fleet services support department. They're only taking care of fleets that are county related. Facilities management, they take care of buildings that the county owns and manage. And so those are internal service departments. There are external service departments that out there and providing services to the public.
Okay, so within the county now, I've done a little bit of research, but not a whole lot. So Pinal County's massive. It is a huge amount of land mass. I mean, like I've heard it, like it's bigger than the state of Maine or whatever. So within the county, we have the 5 districts.
Right.
Correct. Right. Okay. Yeah. Speak up if I start going off
Sure.
off the rails here.
5 supervisory districts, yeah.
5 supervisory district, and there's okay, and then there's an elected board or member for each of the districts. Okay. And then so within those districts, do they have their own support staff, or is like all these support entities, are they housed in Florence and then they dissipate through the county, or kind of how does that break down, like in your roles, like how does that take place? Because that seems like a lot.
Yeah, so the Board of Supervisors have their administrative staff that help them with the day-to-day activities to help with constituency services and stuff.
Sure.
And all the districts have district offices where, a member of the public can go visit the supervisor. The supervisor Surtee has his district office up in Apache Junction. Supervisor Goodwin has his office in Santan Valley. Okay. And then the rest, have their, with the exception of District 4, Vice Chairman McClure, his office is here at base. Okay. Because Florence, this portion of Florence is in his district, so he chose to just maintain his office here in Florence.
Sure, makes sense.
Those offices in the satellite areas, they have some level of services for the constituencies, like assessor, recorder, treasurer. They have those customer-based services.
And all 5 of the districts all have that kind of services. Wow.
Yeah, and but for example, like if there's a service needed for, let's say, Superior Court, they still have to come to Florence because the main Superior Court is located here in Florence.
Yeah.
But there's probably about 60-70% of the services people can go to the district offices and receive.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we have public health that are located sporadically throughout the county where people can go to get their public health needs taken care of. We have a pretty large public health department that, they handle immunization issues to vital records like birth certificates, death certificates. They handle all the nutritional program, early pregnancy issues, from new mothers and stuff. So they handle a lot of services to our residents.
Wow. So, man, managing that has got to be at scale. It's got to be a daunting task.
Yeah, I mean it's fun because it's all about making sure we can fine tune and create efficiencies to be the service provider for our constituencies.
Right.
We have a strong team of. It's not just me or others that are just managing this. We have layers of personnel that help provide that service, and our frontline customers are the critical ones because they're the ones dealing directly with the citizens.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So within this, so you have all these layers of management over, from the people that you meet when you walk through the door, say at a county health services, from that individual all the way up to the manager of that facility so there's this chain of command that comes all the way up, and then underneath, because you said there's 3 deputy county managers, correct? So underneath you, then I'm assuming that you guys have like a board that, or not maybe not a board, maybe that's the wrong term, but you have a group of managers that help keep track of all this stuff, that kind of report to you and say, yeah, roads are being fixed or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Each department has a department director. And then depending on the size of that department, some will have a deputy director. and the directors report to the deputy county managers.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's that hierarchy established as part of, and the ultimately, it's policies that are approved by the board. That is what funnels myself, the county manager, the other deputy county managers to pass that on down to the directors to implement. Each district doesn't have its individual department. Collectively, the governing body is the 5 districts.
Right.
So it's what the majority of those 5 say is how policies are developed.
Okay.
So that's the reason why they convene for meetings to govern the organization as a whole.
Okay.
So it works as a collective approach.
The county, I guess, answers to the state on some levels.
Yeah, you could say
how
that.
does that interaction
Yeah.
work?
So, state of Arizona is a kind of well, it was one of the last states formed, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so the powers that are granted to all the entities that are created, they're created by the state. The rules are created by the state. And so we as a county, along with cities and towns, are a political subdivision of the state. So that what that means is they create the enabling legislation for how we operate.
Okay.
We can only do what they tell us that's allowed in the state laws. Laws can be changed, state laws can be changed.
Sure.
But we have to follow how those laws are established that are at the state level.
Okay.
So, for example, a simple example, if the state law says or is silent on something that we may want to do, that means we can't do it because it doesn't enable us to do it.
Oh, okay.
So you have to be enabled to do something in terms of services,
Okay.
but it has to be written in state law to do it. And in many cases, state law will prohibit cities and counties to do something. So that means we can't do something.
So they can either prohibit you, or they can basically say, or if they say nothing, then that doesn't enable you to do it. So that's as good as a no, right?
Correct.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Like, so have you guys bumped into that before? Have you ran into that? And the state's like, no, we don't have anything on that. And
Well,
or are they pretty quick to react to things?
Well, in order to react, you have to have bills written up
Right.
to change the laws. And in order to get the laws changed, it goes through the legislative process. The House, the Senate, committee reviews, and then ultimately both houses have to vote on it to change laws. Similar to federal level, you have to introduce a bill here, and then you got to reintroduce it here, and then both have to come together, and that's a complex, relationship lobbying process.
Oh yeah.
And so it could take multiple attempts to make changes, to something that the county may want to do something, but it doesn't enable us, and so you have to have stakeholders involved to help change those laws. And then you have to convince lawmakers that, hey, this has a value added, not just because we're the county, but it also has value added to benefit our constituencies.
Okay.
So it does take time and energy to change laws.
So I find that really interesting, that if there is nothing written about if somebody came to you with a request for whatever service or whatever it would be, that if you're like, well, there's nothing in the books about it, then you guys are kind of hamstrung until then it's kind of a matter of the constituents taking it to the state, then I guess would be kind of the.
Yeah. And also our elected officials who, if they support something, then they can be advocates of that change,
Sure. So the elected officials within the county are obviously the Board of Supervisors, the sheriff, the county attorney. who else? The recorder, the assessor. So we have a group of elected officials, and they kind of oversee. They're kind of the top rung of the management.
The treasurer, the school superintendent.
Yep. Okay.
Our justice of the peace, the judges that are in our justice courts, our constables. They're elected by the people.
Too. Okay, I didn't know.
Our superior court judges, they're elected by the people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Huh. Yeah. Wow. This is a lot. This is great.
But it's still in the confine of the judicial branch, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. The same structure the federal government has, county has that same approach. Our judicial branch, the court systems, our legislative branch, our governing body, board of supervisors, and our administrative branch, the county administration.
With Pinal County, and you've obviously, you've lived all over, done lots of different things. What are some of the unique challenges of Pinal County? I mean, other than its sheer size, I know always seems to kind of come up in a lot of these conversations.
Sure. Infrastructure, an important factor of maintaining and sustaining quality of life. Transportation, road. When I say infrastructure, roadways,
Sure.
Electricity, power, water, wastewater, things like that are important, and not just balancing between ensuring we have those adequacies for new growth, but sustaining it for existing population, because it ages and you have to maintain that.
Yeah, roads got to be fixed.
Right. Yeah, roads got to be fixed. Roads need to be widened in many cases.
Yeah.
And that's a balance in terms of we've are a pretty fast growing county. The pressure.
Yeah.
And this is not just the first cycle. This has happened in the early 2000s. As pressure is built around Maricopa County, that pressure comes into Pinal County. So there's a lot of interest in development. The one interesting thing that's happened in the last probably 5 years is we are at a point of diversifying our economy. Historically, our county economy has been heavily focused on natural resources.
Sure.
Mining,
Yep.
Agriculture. Agriculture still is a big component of Pinal County, as is natural resources. Then came the influx of pressure from Maricopa County of more residential in our county. I was here when Maricopa incorporated. They started off as a small little community and then incorporated, and the incorporation, it's a matter of public-driven process. It's a desire of the residents how they want to be, how they want to have, if they do want their own local government or not. But going back to your original question of what's the challenges in Pinal County? Yeah, so growth has been a factor for Pinal County, but the last 5 years, what we've seen is a huge increase in non-residential growth. So industries, which is been a huge target of our governing body, our board, because for the longest time, because of the residential growth, we were viewed as just this bedroom community. People came over here, wanted to live, wanted to have their kids grow up in our county, but worked. The employment opportunities were outside our county.
Right.
And so we've seen a huge increase in the non-residential growth from industries that have, occurred in Casa Grande area, Eloy, Coolidge area, North Santan, Queen Creek area. Many of the big projects like Lucid was a huge employer that we were able to attract to land in Pinal County. So that's been a positive trend because it gives an opportunity to provide employment here locally so people can live here, work here, and enjoy their time here. I think it was just being around the right time, because in those strategic locations you have some major infrastructure. You have I-8, you have I-10, you have railway traversing through that area, and it was just a matter of time where we would see our opportunities to see employment here. So
let's go back. This I-11, that's coming through here, you think? I mean, what
I don't know if it'll happen in my time, but the plan is there.
Okay.
It's just gone through its first phase of environmental study. The intent is to have a direct freeway between Las Vegas through Arizona and ultimately down to Nogales, Arizona.
Wow.
And several options have been, at least the ones that would traverse through Pinal County. There's multiple options, and it's intended to be on our western part of our county, and then ultimately connect the area known as Hidden Valley area, Thunderbird Farms, to Maricopa, to Casa Grande, and down into Eloy and into Pima County.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That would be a massive project.
Oh yeah. Well, any roadway like that size, it's massive, but also multi-generation time frame.
Right.
It takes time.
And that would be on the federal level, I'm assuming, because it's interstate, or
correct.
I mean, but they would liaison with the counties and everybody else who had it.
And the state.
And the state. Yeah. Right.
Right.
With all this growth and everything that we're seeing within, like Santana, I mean, I know, we just watched Queen Creek incorporate and turn into a city. And I mean, does that provide unique challenges for the county, or does that kind of take some stuff off of your plate, so to speak?
Oh, when an area becomes incorporated?
Yeah.
We don't look at it as just taking stuff off our plate. I think we look at it as an opportunity to where the local area that's incorporating wants to have greater say-so in what's going to happen in this, and how they want to see that area prosper.
Sure.
Whether it's limiting growth, balancing growth, to, hey, we want to maintain it the way that it is in existence. So what does happen is when an area incorporates, they're mandated by state law to start offering certain services.
Okay.
Generally, a newly formed city or town, at their discretion, they usually will enter into service agreements with a county.
Okay.
Like when the city of Maricopa incorporated, for the first several years, because they have to build capacity, right?
Yeah.
The resources. They contracted with the county to do like law enforcement.
Yeah, you don't just open the doors and be like, yeah, we have a police station.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's a transition process.
Okay.
And then however long that governing body, the new governing body of a city or town, wants to maintain that relationship. For example, like the town of Queen Creek incorporated, I think in the 80s. It was until about 3 years ago is when they said, okay, Maricopa Sheriff, thank you, we're going to form our own police department.
Really? So they were incorporated that many years ago?
Yeah. Town of Queen Creek, yeah.
Wow.
But it wasn't just...
Yeah, because it seemed like it just happened, but I guess it had to do with the fact that they were finally, I guess, taking the full reins of their area by getting a police force.
Yeah, just last 3 years they formed their own police department, but up until that time they contracted with Maricopa County Sheriff's Office for their law enforcement services.
So is that just? I mean, that's just like any other service contract type of thing, like.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I've never thought about it. As far as like, hey, I need law enforcement, so I can go hire these guys.
Yeah, it's a matter of balancing between having that engagement between the leadership of those organizations, saying, hey, look, based on our population and our growth projections, we're wanting to see if you can provide, whatever, 5, 10, 15 full-time law enforcement officials, and all the other ancillary services from investigations to jail services to dispatching services, so it gets complex, but those are necessary conversations that need to be happening. The new city doesn't have all their resources up to, it takes time. So typically initial years will contract with the county to help maintain roads, because we were doing these things in this newly formed area. It's and it gets a little complex because the newly formed city also starts receiving revenues, tax revenues from the state. So that's how they build their budgets and their.
Okay. So does that come from property taxes or sales tax?
Sales tax,
from sales
income tax, sales tax, and your motor vehicle registration.
Okay.
And
So
the
that's
fuel
how
tax and the fuel tax
fuel tax.
that you pay
The road tax.
for when you buy gasoline.
Yeah.
So
it's like 18 cents or something, but it's broke down into
state and federal.
state and federal.
Yeah, the state portion gets collected at the state, but then distributed to cities and counties.
Okay. And maybe you don't know this, but I was always told that was for road maintenance
Correct.
and stuff. Okay.
Strictly restricted just for roads.
Just for roads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bridges, roads,
Yeah.
anything associated that impacts roads.
Yeah. Transportation.
Right.
Because you're buying fuel to run on those.
Correct.
Hopefully.
Right.
We got paper to drive on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We like that. Yeah. Okay. And so that's handed down by the state. Now, does the county, they obviously get their portion of it as well? Okay.
Correct.
That's brought down from the state to you guys.
Correct.
We all pay property taxes here in the county. So that comes into the assessor's office. Now, does that go to the state and then it's broken down and then redistributed to everyone? Or is that held within the county?
It's collected at the county.
Yeah.
The state has nothing to do with it. So when you look at your property tax bill, you'll see all these taxing entities in there.
Yeah.
School districts,
Sure.
college district, flood district, Pinal County, library district, flood district. I already mentioned that.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of different taxing entities. Then when it's collected, the county treasurer distributes that to all those entities.
So what would be a library district?
So library district is countywide.
Okay.
So any taxpayers that are within the county, including if you're in the city or not, you're paying the library district tax.
Yeah.
That money is collected, provided to the library district, who then distributes the dollars to cities and town libraries, along with several libraries that the county manages.
Yeah.
So,
Correct.
like Florence Library gets resources from the county library district. Casa Grande libraries get those dollars distributed to the Casa Grande libraries to help provide resources to city libraries, town libraries, and the county libraries that we operate.
Okay.
And they do inter exchange. So, for example, if you live in Florence or nearby and you go to the Florence Library and they don't have resources there that you would need, but it's in City of Maricopa's library, the next day it'll be made available for you here in Florence. And it's a natural misconception. I'm paying this to the county, like say your tax bill total is $1,000.
Right.
But the county's not getting the $1,000. The county gets only a portion of that $1,000 based on all the taxing jurisdictions that are in there. So, the school is getting a portion of that $1,000. The college is getting a portion of that. The fire district, if you live in a fire district,
Sure.
gets a portion of that. So, if you're in a city, and a city has a primary property tax, that's also included in the tax bill. They'll get their share of it. The city will.
Okay. So the state never sees any of that.
No.
No.
The state doesn't.
The state runs off the sales tax and
Income tax.
income tax.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Now the state sets rules on
Sure.
how that property tax needs to be levied and the max that could be levied.
Also, they tell the counties how that.
Yeah.
Oh.
They set the rules on, because again, we're a political subdivision of the state.
Right.
To get into the details of that, when you do a podcast with the county treasurer, he can explain all that to you, because I don't know all of it.
Well, yeah, I don't expect one person to understand all of this. I'm hoping
they're the expert.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'll have a grasp, or at least a better grasp, at the end of this journey. But so that would be the treasurer, not so much the assessor's office.
The assessor sets the values.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're governed by the state on how certain things can only be valued at certain levels.
Okay.
And then the treasurer just imposes, okay, here's the value and the tax rate that has been approved by the governing body. Here's what your bill is based on that tax rate.
Water has come up multiple times. They're like, well, who sets all that? Who handles all that? You know,
Complex, extremely complex, and the best person with the knowledge to provide a very good layman's explanation would be our chairman, Chairman Miller. Okay. So hopefully you get a chance to
he's definitely on the list.
Have him on your podcast.
Yeah.
But it is very complex. There are so many variety of different rules related to. Okay. There's surface water and there's groundwater. Surface water is, you see the canals that have water in. That's surface water.
Surface water. Yeah. Gotcha.
Groundwater. Yeah. So
stuff we gotta drop a well to get.
So imagine a map being created years and years ago of how the underground attributes of an aquifer looks like. Okay. So you can see how land is on the surface can be laid out, because you see, okay, if I'm sitting on top of a high-story building, I can see how land is laid out. I can see how the hills are, how the mountains are. It's easy to see, but it's hard to see what's underground because we don't normally see it. The state has established regulatory attributes of major aquifers that are within our county, and they're managed through what's called a active management area. Pinal Active Management Area is a geographic area of a portion of our county that has said, okay, based on the aquifer that's within this active management area, here are the rules.
Okay.
Phoenix Active Management Area, which includes a large portion of Maricopa County, along with coming into Pinal County, here are their rules based on the underground data analysis of what those aquifers are.
Yeah.
And the existing population and the growth projections have to somehow come to a balance to understand if there's sufficient amount of groundwater that's going to sustain life.
This many people Is there like a set number of years that this has to sustain life, or
based on the state laws are 100 a year?
It's 100 years.
Yeah, that's why people say, well, do you have a certificate of assured water supply, which is a 100-year certificate?
Who's going to back that up at year 99?
But on paper, they had to establish some parameter. And those rules vary. But for everyone outside those active management area, it's kind of like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
You know, if you can drill a well and there's water, okay.
That's yours.
Cross your finger.
Yeah.
See how long that'll last.
Right.
But more people put those wells in, everyone's in that same aquifer.
Yeah.
And so at some point it's going to, if there's not recharge,
Right. Well, and the one thing I learned after I was with the university in ag research for 20-something years, and the one thing that I took out of that career is that the more that we think we know with this, we realize that, we're just uncovering more questions about, and especially when it comes to aquifers, because I did do some work with that. It's like, well, how do we know that across this line that we've drawn on this map, that well over there isn't actually drawing from over here, right? You know, because we can't map every fissure in the ground where this might go. So yeah, so water obviously a big challenge with Pinal County moving forward.
Balancing the urban and rural. That's going to be a continual opportunity as the population and as an area grows, trying to bridge that harmony.
Oh yeah.
And in where that's very important is because it's people's quality of life is the an important attribute to why people choose to live where they live.
Right.
And how do you harmony-wise balance it? And the only thing we have now is a due process, so people have the opportunity to have their input through public hearings, and then ultimately a decision needs to be made by our governing body.
Sure.
So we're going to see more and more of that because, there are private properties that people own that they want to maximize their return, right? That's the beauty of our capital economy.
Yeah.
And there's farmers that want to capitalize on that. There's vacant landowners that want to capitalize on that, and that creates the venue for, hey, if a property owner has 500 acres and they are putting it out on the market and a developer wants to develop it, well, the venue to see if you can develop it is our public hearing process.
Right.
And I think that's going to continue to happen because there's only limited amount of private lands in Pinal County. That's another important factor that is the public to understand. We have, I think, 30% of our county as a whole is privately owned land.
Yeah.
And then another 30 is state trust land.
Yep.
What do you think is the purpose of state trust land? State trust land's purpose is to maximize return for their beneficiaries. When we were a territory state, because western part of the U.S., much of its federal land and tribal land, the federal government established a large part of our state to be trust lands to help ensure future continuity of education and other resources. So the beneficiaries are primarily the school systems, the university systems. Mm-hmm. In order for them to maximize return, when they feel the market is right, they're going to sell those lands.
Okay.
And those lands are going to be sold to the highest and best use.
Okay.
So that their beneficiaries, the schools and colleges, can get a better return.
Right.
To sustain the schools and to sustain the universities.
So who decides that? Is that comes at the
state level? State commissioner, land commissioner.
The state land commissioner says, okay,
I'm ready to sell this piece.
I'm ready to sell
I'm going to put it up for auction.
Let the bidding begin.
Yeah. They don't want to put or allow a use that's going to devalue the next piece of land that they have adjacent to it.
Right.
So they look at it as a global approach, that I'm not going to allow a use that's going to have a negative implication to my surrounding lands at the state trust land. But in any case, any use if it's in the county, it still has to go through a public process,
right.
To get the zoning done, to get permitting, and public has a chance to provide input.
So does the state sell off much of their trust land? I mean,
they do. I mean, I think annually you can see on their website they'll usually have a dozen or so auctions throughout the state.
Yeah, where they're selling off small portions.
Yeah. The most recent one in our county was if you drive along Ironwood Road, mm-hmm. It's in Apache Junction, just north of the LG project. There's a subdivisions that are on both sides that have started to develop.
Yeah.
it was auctioned off 3 years ago, and D.R. Horton and Brookfield Properties purchased it for master plan community.
Right.
So that was all state trust land. State trust land is not a tax contributor.
Right.
So they don't pay property tax.
No.
Now these have been sold to private entities. They'll be added to the tax roll.
Okay. Wow, I just thought that was.
So
I thought they bought all that property so that I could hunt on it. That's what I thought.
yeah. So and many people think because it's vast, beautiful desert land that it's
Yeah, that's what it says.
it's open space and it's recreation and you can go on state trust land with a permit and recreate and hunt and all that.
Yeah,
but
you have full access with your hunting license
in
Arizona to.
But the notion that it will stay that way, I think what'll happen, because that's so close to the Metro Phoenix area, so it's like a domino effect. The LG factory that's being resurrected in Queen Creek, that was all state trust land. It's an industrial use, but the everything's all contained inside the building to create batteries for EV.
Yeah.
It's along a major roadway that's already connected, State Route 24, and that State Route 24 will go from Ironwood all the way to US 60.
Yeah.
So. Good.
Okay, so private land versus public. So we got state trust land. We also have federal property.
We have federal BLM, Forest Service, tribal lands. Those are all. Yeah. Areas that we don't help manage because that's federal entities and tribal entities.
Yeah. Now you said how much is private land in Pinal County?
Probably about a little under 30%.
That's an amazing number because considering how big Pinal County is.
Yeah, and 33% state trust land, and the rest is federal and tribal.
Wow. So that's one of our challenges moving forward is how much private land there is.
Yeah, and what
want to move here.
Right, and how the state trust land begins to develop or not develop. It's
because that's kind of dictated to you guys from the state, right? I mean, or does the county do you guys have a say? Like when LG wanted to purchase that property, do they deal just directly to the state or do they have to come to you guys as well, to the county level and say, hey, this is what we want to do? Or is that just they go to the state and the state says, okay, Pinal County, this is what you're going to get a battery plant?
No, unfortunately, the state hasn't taken away our policing power of zoning.
Okay.
And permitting,
right.
and that they leave at the local level. So when LG was going through the acquisition process, and again, here's an important factor: that land was already annexed into the town of Queen Creek.
Okay.
So they went through Queen Creek to go get their zoning and permitting in a public process.
Okay.
Zoning itself is a long tool that's been used in our country. Since the early 90s, late 1800s, to help create opportunities of uses that are compatible or uses that are not compatible, and then how people can enjoy their properties. And so we as a county in unincorporated areas of our the jurisdiction of our zoning codes only apply in unincorporated county.
Sure.
The cities take care of their own codes, and so because that side of the county services of development services is strictly just unincorporated. So we've had a zoning code in the county since 50s, 60s, and then it revised in 70s and revised in the 90s and then revised in 2012. And we're here now. And so since 2012 till the start of the new kind of update process several years back, the amount of things that staff sees and our elected officials sees that are conflicting with how people want to enjoy their properties. We keep tallies of those things because you can't do code updates every few months. You know, it just becomes
a process. Yeah.
So we keep tally of all of these things that need to be improved and changed. And so once you get to a point where this is voluminous, let's do a major code update.
Yeah. So these tallies, are these coming from people giving you direct information, like people calling in, or
or that they're having an issue with their property, whether it's setback issue or whether it's use issue, or elected officials have seen or heard from constituency that, hey, this is an interesting thing that these neighbors over here want to do. Why isn't this allowed over here? And then some of it comes from the state too, where the state can say that you have to allow certain uses, or you have to allow. Recently, I think last year or so, they said that every property of a certain size you have to allow a accessory dwelling, because they wanted to make accessory dwelling as an opportunity to help with housing,
Sure. Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, right.
So state can sometimes dictate based on laws they pass, where then the cities and counties have to make changes to their regulations to accommodate for that. So it's a buildup of all these things.
Yeah.
Because it's so voluminous, we got some things wrong. We heard it loud and clear.
Basically, it'd been better if we'd had this conversation prior to all this, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's getting the information out to the people, and I understand how difficult that is. It's good that the people were heard, and that our elected officials, reacted in a way that I think was very positive. No matter what your take is on the issue, I think they heard the voices and said, no, this is the majority of what people want. We're gonna try something different. So with that, as a constituent, what's the best process that we can do to stay abreast of that and to help, I guess, steer the ship? I mean, what can we do to help this whole system?
Yeah. So our strategy right now is, with the action of the board, said, hey, suspend, terminate the code update process. That took place. We are going through some internal education process, so we need to get the board fully up to speed on the gravity of the different changes that were made, or the proposed changes. We're going to do stakeholder groups to get out in all 5 of the districts. It's going to take multiple meetings throughout all 5 districts, and the board will likely solicit stakeholders from their district to, hey, look, are you willing to assist in being the part of this group to vet drafts, different segments of it. And then we haven't made yet the decisions to just take the code piece by piece to the board for consideration, or in its entirety. That decision, I think, we'll make at a later point based on feedback we get, because even if we had a stakeholder group of 20 people in each district's, here's 400-page document, give me your feedback. That's not going to work. You got to take it section by section and take time with it and get stakeholders' input.
What do you think about this piece? All right. So everybody's hearing that. If you're a stakeholder, do your job. We need this feedback.
I look at it from a standpoint of not that we got the public upset based on the past several months, what we had initially put out. I think that's great that they got engaged. And I'm hoping that engagement maintains as we go through the different revision process, and so it was although it was upsetting for them because it could have had an impact on their livelihood and their quality of life. I look at it as a standpoint, well, at least we got someone's attention to come out and be active, right?
Right. No, I totally agree with you. I think if nothing else, it was a wake up call. We need these conversations to take place, and we have the technology now that makes it so easy.
And perhaps we use this forum, as we develop drafts of the code to educate people.
Love it.
Yeah,
We'd love to help out any way we can.